Hi, everyone. It's Kim from the Pennington Public Library. Welcome. We're so glad you're here to celebrate the Winter Garden. While winter can feel like a dormant time, today we're going to look at the season through a different lens, finding beauty, humor, and peace in the quiet landscape. Before we begin, a quick note on how to participate. Please place any questions you have in the Q&A window, and feel free to share your thoughts and comments in the chat throughout the talk. Now, to get us started, I'd like to introduce Michael Rotz. Michael is a board member of the Washington Crossing Park Association and serves as the chair of Nature Conservation and Education. Michael, the floor is all yours.
Thanks, Kim. Good evening, everyone. Um, I just wanted to, so the Washington Crossing Park Association is co-hosting this presentation, and this is Rosalind is our first speaker of a four-part conservation themed webinar series that we're doing over the course of 2026. So yeah, as Kim mentioned, I'm the chair of the Nature Conservation Committee at the Washington Crossing Park Association, and we do things like reforestation. We hold lots of volunteer events. Um, so definitely let us know if you're interested to do things like invasive species removal and, of course, native planting and tree planting. We've planted almost 600 trees. Our Continental Lane reforestation project. Um, and I just wanted to say, sort of give some context for this presentation. Rosalind's going to show us some beautiful pictures, beautiful images of our area this evening, and our area is also at risk, ecologically speaking. And I think we don't want to take for granted this beauty that we can find in our landscape. So one thing that everyone can do is plant native plants, and of course, Rosalind has an excellent source for them. So with that, I'll give it back to Kim.
Thank you so much, Michael. So before we begin, I'd like to introduce Rosalind. It's my pleasure to introduce Rosalind Doremus. Rosalind is a certified nursery and landscape professional and the owner of My Backyard at Nectars in Titusville. For Rosalind, her garden center is a mission-driven extension of her life as an educator. Since 2023, she has facilitated the planting of over 24,000 North American native plants, an incredible achievement that earned her the 2025 NJNLA Retailer of the Year award. We are thrilled to have her here to share her expertise and her personal reflections on the winter season. Please join me in welcoming Rosalind. Welcome, Rosalind.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here and just talk about winter and hope to beat some winter depression we might be battling and bring some joy to a season that's typically hard to embrace. So, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Rosalind.
Go.
Yes, feel free. I love this
Oh,
title screen already.
okay. So here's the my talk on the winter garden. This cover shot here is a picture of the first big snow that we had at the garden center. What do we want winter to look like? Here's two photos here. The one on the right is from my own backyard. The one on the left is just from a friend's garden in North Jersey. We want a winter wonderland. We want every last inch of our gardens covered in snow. Outside of my windows here, we have some inkberry. The middle picture is some bee balm with little gumdrops covered in snow. And here on the right is outside of our front porch. Again, every inch covered in snow. The wind hasn't moved an inch of it yet.
Rosalind, are these from this year?
They're actually from last year. They're actually from last year. But what does winter really look like? The truth is that winter is cold, winter is brown, winter is muddy. There's not a ton of color unless maybe we have a birdhouse or a garden sign. Our gardens look like this. They're covered in frost. There are shades of brown and tan. An eastern red cedar might provide a touch of evergreen, and there might be some moss on a tree, but there's not a ton of color here. The world around us looks like this. maybe a little bit of snow, but still it's cold. There's no leaves. And again, it's just not a ton of color. So funny enough, the 2025 Pantone Institute Color of the Year was Mocha Mousse. And Kim, can I here? I'm sorry. Um, the evocative shades of brown, of warming, rich brown hues, nurtures with suggestions of delectable cacao, chocolate, and coffee, appealing to our desire for comfort. Mocha Mousse is supposed to provoke feelings of thoughtful indulgence, harmonious comfort, and feelings of contentment. So, is the Pantone Institute onto something? If we look past the color or lack of color in these photos, can we feel the warmth of Mocha Mousse? Can we feel the warmth in the cover these plants are providing for the earth? Can we hear the peace and quiet of the winter meadow? Can we sense the habitat for all the birds and small mammals? The truth is, Um, these winter brown seed heads, berry shrubs, and messy leaves is this bird's favorite winter destination. So, how does winter really feel to us? And here's a funny cartoon I found of probably my husband and me, and he wants to know if I'm ever getting out of bed. And I say, I'm going winter dormant. Wake me up when my crocuses bloom. This winter, I'm learning survival strategy from my plants. So seasonal depression. Seasonal depression is a real thing. But some of us don't like to look at it as depression. Some of us just feel it's a natural inclination that we have with the earth. And I found this quote that might make us feel a little bit better. You may think of yourself as lazy or flawed, yet your body is made up of almost exactly the same elements as the stars. Your bone composition matches the coral in the seas, and you, my friend, are ruled by the moon and the sun, whether you like it or not. So, no, you are not lazy. Nature is simply pulling you to slow, like the life and floral and fauna around you. It is not your moment to rise. It is winter, and you are wintering. You are right on time. And here's a picture of my dog Lainey with her head in the snow, so she suffers just the same. um, how do we get through winter? By changing the ways in which we look at winter, we can not only thrive during this season, but we could also learn to embrace it. And here on the left is a great quote from Robin Wall Kimmerer. She's the author of Braiding Sweetgrass. This excerpt is from Gathering Moss. And she says, I'll never forget my first look at snowflakes through that magnifying lens, spangling the woolly sleeve of her navy blue coat like stars in a midnight sky. Magnified tenfold, the complexity and detail of a single snowflake took me completely by surprise. How could something so small and ordinary be so perfectly beautiful? For the first time, but not the last time, I had a sense that there were more to the world than immediately met the eye. I looked out at the falling softly, the snow falling softly on the branches and rooftops with a new understanding that every drift was made up of a universe of starry crystals. And here's a little bird bath with my dragonfly statue in it. So, with that, I invite you to come on in and take a closer look. This is New York ironweed here in my own meadow in Hillsborough, New Jersey. New York ironweed is Vernonia noveboracensis. It is a New Jersey native perennial. It has deep purple blooms in the summer. It reaches 5 to 7 feet tall. It's happiest in full sun, wet to average soils. It is tolerant of clay and it is very deer resistant. It is also a prolific reseeder. So if you're going to plant one New York ironweed, it'll probably be a limited amount of time before you have 100. Here in the fall and winter seasons, you could see it here covered with brown seed heads. There's some cattails there. And the photo on the right is New York ironweed just covered in a blanket of ice. Red chokeberry is Aronia arbutifolia. This is a New Jersey native shrub. It reaches 6 to 8 feet in height and it'll form colonies via rhizomes. It's happiest in wet to average soils. It's tolerant of clay. It has white blooms in the springtime, red fruit in the late fall, and it has very showy, deep red fall color. Here in these photos, you could get a close up. The fruit has not yet been eaten by birds, and that's just because it's not ripe yet for them. It might look like it is, it might be red and showy, but these birds are a little bit more particular than we realize, and that's just something I'm beginning to understand. This is switchgrass, also known as Panicum virgatum. This is a warm season grass, meaning it does most of its growing once the temperatures get above 50 to 60 degrees. It prefers full sun in average to moist soils. It is also tolerant of clay. It reaches 5 to 7 feet tall, and this straight species has yellow fall color. You might see a little bit more reds and purples in some of the cultivars, but the straight species is more yellow. It has great winter interest because it just stays up despite any snow. And those seed heads, again, are going to provide nesting material for birds. It's also a great habitat. This is American holly. This is Ilex opaca. There's not a ton of native evergreens here in the Northeast, but American holly is one of them. This one will reach 30 to 50 feet in height and about 15 to 20 in spread. You're going to need a male and a female to get fruit. Here on the left is a male, just covered in ice, and you could see how stunning that is. On the right, you'll see a female with red fruit, and out my window now is this American holly, and the birds, they've started to eat it, but American hollies is just one of the ones where the fruit is not totally to their liking yet. It's not ripe yet. Because it's evergreen, it provides great cover and habitat for birds as well. This is Anise hyssa. In Latin, that's Agastache funiculum. This is a native perennial to New Jersey. It does best in full to part sun. In the shade, it might stretch out a little bit more. It does well in average soils, but it needs good drainage. So if you have a lot of clay, this might not be the ideal plant for you. It has lavender summertime blooms, and it'll get 3 to 5 feet in height. It's got aromatic foliage, kind of remnant of licorice. You can make tea with it, or you could crush it up and just put some on your pressure points for a little aromatherapy. Anise hyssop is a pollinator favorite, attracting all sorts of bees and butterflies and even hummingbirds. It's deer resistant because of the aromatic foliage, and those seed heads, again, are going to provide food for birds. The picture on the right, you could see the seed heads, but if you look down in the snow below, you could also see some bird footprints, knowing that they've been around and they've been picking through. This is Sweet Bay Magnolia. This is a cultivar called Moonglow. Sweet Bay Magnolia is a native understory tree here in New Jersey. It is adaptable to many soil types and sun situations. Here in my yard, it's planted in the understory underneath some white pines and some falling ash trees. So, God help it. But it's also adaptable to many different soil types, including sand and clay, and your average soils as well. Moonglow is a cultivar. It was selected for its upright habit, and its winter leaf retention. So you could see these photos. This magnolia is covered in ice. There is snow all around, but this magnolia has not really dropped any leaves. The straight species of Magnolia, Magnolia virginiana, tends to lose most of its leaves. Moonglow gets 20 to 30 feet tall, 15 feet wide, and in our yard, it's deer resistant. So hopefully it will be in yours as well. This is Ilex glabrous shamrock. This is a lower native New Jersey shrub. Um, Shamrock is a female cultivar. It was selected for its more compact and shorter habit. It'll reach 3 to 5 feet tall and wide. Again, inkberry is tolerant of many different soils and different levels of sun. It does wet best in full sun and moist soils with good drainage. It's pretty adaptable to clay, but it really prefers the good drainage. Shamrock also suckers less than the straight species, so that's kind of why that one is more desired in the typical landscape as opposed to the straight species. It has small white blooms in the springtime, and even though those flowers are not super visible to the human eye, pollinators love them. You'll see all sorts of different bees buzzing around these shrubs, and to me, that's always a joy to see. Black fruit in the fall time, but again, you're going to need a male pollinator to get the fruit on the female. Little blue stem. This is Schizocarium scoparium. This cultivar was found in the wild. It's called Standing Ovation. Standing Ovation was selected for its upright and uniform habit. Um, in the springtime, it's got blue foliage, little tinges of purple. In the fall time, it gets really purple and red. And here in the late fall, it's just these great shades of tan. And covered in ice. It looks spectacular. It also looks wonderful when backlit by the sun. Little blue stem is deer resistant. It does best in full sun. It also needs good drainage, so your drier and sandier soils are going to be preferred. It is a host plant for skipper butterflies. So this is a great New Jersey native grass to have in your yard. This is Penstemon digitalis, otherwise known as foxglove beard tongue. This is a New Jersey native perennial. It'll get 3 to 5 feet in height. It's got white blooms in the spring that attract both bumblebees and hummingbirds. It's got really unique seed heads, which you can't really see in this photo, but you can see on the right that it has evergreen basal foliage. So in the wintertime, we just have to embrace a different kind of evergreen where things are muddy shades of brown. But they're there with us, and we could see when they're coming back in the springtime. Cornus Florida. This is our flowering dogwood. This is also a New Jersey native understory tree. It'll reach 20 to 25 feet in height and spread. It's got a really open and airy habit. It's got white blooms in the springtime. It has deep red to purple fall color. It has red fruit in the late fall season for birds. And in the wintertime, you could really get a close look at its showy bark. Here on the left, you could see a flowering dogwood in our own yard. It's covered in ice, it's covered in moss, and you could really see that bark is just something special to get a close look at. Here on the right, you'll see the springtime buds of the flowering dogwood. They have a great shade of pink to purple, which in the wintertime is something to celebrate, even if it is covered in ice. So it's a beautiful tree. Hydrangea quercifolia. This is oak leaf hydrangea. This is not native to New Jersey, but it is native to the southeast corner of our country. It is an understory shrub. It does best in full to part sun with moist soils. The more sun you plant this shrub in, the more moisture you're going to need in your soil. Otherwise, it kind of burns up. It'll get 6 to 8 feet in height and spread. And even though it is not native in New Jersey, it is still a pollinator favorite. It's ours is buzzing with bees all summer long. It's got white blooms. It has super red fall color, and here in the wintertime, you could really celebrate this showy bark, whether it's covered in ice. The dried flower heads, also covered in ice here, are wonderful to bring in for maybe a centerpiece, but they look great outside all winter long. This is Betula nigra. This is our New Jersey native river birch. I chose this one here on the left. This is a cultivar called Little King. Little King is unique in that it only gets 15 to 20 feet tall in height, but it carries all the same showy bark as the straight species. On the right, you could see the trunk of the straight species. This tree can get anywhere between 50 to 60 feet tall. In the typical landscape in nature, it could probably reach up to 100 feet or more if it's really happy. So Little King might be preferred in a smaller landscape. And where this picture is showing this river birch right up against the house, this is probably not the best idea. River birch can have disruptive roots, so you're not going to want to plant this one this close to your house. I'd probably put it at least 20 feet off the corner or so if you are going to plant it. River birch are great plants for pollinators because they have early season blooms, but this bark is just unbeatable. Cornus sericea. This is red twig dogwood, another New Jersey native shrub. This will reach 6 to 8 feet tall in height. It's going to spread via rhizomes, and those are your underground spreading root systems. So if you want to keep this in a tight little one shrub situation, you're going to want to prune back any suckering stems. This plant does best in full to part sun in average to wet soils. It has white lace cap blooms and white fruit in the late summer. Red twig dogwood benefits greatly from rejuvenation pruning, meaning that you could cut this shrub back to the ground every year and you'll get those bright red stems every winter. If you don't prune back your red twig dogwood, you're going to find that your canes get thicker and they start fading away to shades of brown and yellow. So really pruning it back is the best for this red fall color. There's a cultivar called Bailey, and Bailey just suckers less than the straight species, so it might be a little bit more landscape friendly than the straight species, just to keep it in a smaller space. This is Ilex verticillata. This is a plant that probably everybody knows, and surely every bird knows it. This is a New Jersey native shrub. Winterberry is very adaptable through full sun, and moist soils are preferred. It'll get 6 to 8 feet tall and wide. Male and female plants are needed for the fruit. On the left here, this is a variety called Red Sprite. Red Sprite has larger fruit than the straight species and only gets to be about 5 by 5. Here on the right is Winter Red. It's covered in birds, and this variety is a taller one, reaching 6 to 8 feet in height. Winterberry has little white flowers in the springtime and yellow fall color. It is a durable landscape shrub. This is common witch hazel. This is Hamamelis virginiana. And if you know Hamamelis, you could probably smell this photo. It's got a really fragrant lemony scent. This is a New Jersey native understory shrub. In our home gardens, you'll probably see this reach 10 to 15 feet. In the wild, you're probably looking at 20 to 30 feet tall and wide. It's got a really open habit, so if you're going to plant this shrub in your yard, make sure you give it some room. It does best in full to part sun and moist to average soils. These fragrant blooms appear in the late fall to early winter. So in the woods, if you were to run into this shrub, it would be past blooming by now. More seed heads, please. Here on the left, this is Baptisia australis. This is blue false indigo. It has blue flowers in the springtime. It has a really shrubby habit. It's got a deep taproot, making it very drought resistant. It's also tolerant of clay because of that. In the wintertime, it has these great seed capsules, and if the wind blows, you'll hear the seeds rattling inside of those seed heads. So this is a shrub that you could enjoy to look at and listen to. On the right is rose mallow. This is Hibiscus machudose. This has really showy seed pods, just really unique star-shaped, and they look even more beautiful covered in ice. Um, Hibiscus are quite deer resistant. They do best in wet soils, but these seed heads are very special in the wintertime. They're just very unique. Buttonbush, Cephalanthus occidentalis. This is probably one of my all-time favorite plants. It is native here in New Jersey. It can range anywhere between 5 and 12 feet tall and wide. It does best in full sun, and while it prefers wet soils, it is really adaptable. I have plenty of these in our own yard, and through the years of past immense drought, these plants have not skipped a beat. Their leaves do not wilt at all, and that just continues to impress me. They have super fragrant, unique blooms that attract all sorts of butterflies and insects that I don't see on any other plant. So this is a very special, durable landscape shrub here in New Jersey. Um, on the left, you could kind of see it in the background. The seed heads in front are Joe Pye weed, but you could see all the seed heads, and birds love those. And here on the right is just a close up. Some other natives that are having winter interest, Eastern white pine is a huge evergreen covered in ice. It's probably a landscape danger. Don't stand below it because those branches will drop, but it is showy and super glistening in the sunlight. Leucothoe axillaris is dog hobble. This is not native in New Jersey, but again, I wanted to highlight it because it's evergreen. It's deer resistant. It's got flowers in the early springtime, and just look at it covered in ice. And of course, pokeberry, where I don't know the Latin name for pokeberry, and I don't know anybody who does, but the birds love this plant. They love it in the fall for their purple berries. Here in the wintertime, covered in ice, it's a beautiful thing. And of course, a little touch of green. Creeping moss phlox is Phlox subulata. Again, it's a little muddy, but it's color in a time of year where there isn't much of that. Cherokee sedge here on the right, or on the right is Carex cherokeensis, providing some evergreen and cover for overwintering insects. What are some good wintertime activities? You can tour a local nursery. This is Pleasant Run Nursery in Allentown, New Jersey. These are their greenhouses covered in snow. This is a wholesale nursery, so maybe try and sneak in the next time your landscaper goes there. But the plants here are diverse, and it's a candy store for me, that's for sure. You can go birding. It's always fun in the winter time to look for birds. The leaves are not on the trees, so it's easier to see birds. The bald eagles are around this time of the year, and if you're along the water, they're just everywhere. Here on the right is a nest of a bald eagle. They're about 10 feet wide, believe it or not, so that's just really cool. Birds at a bird feeder, birds in a dogwood tree. Pileated woodpecker on an ash tree. You know there's tons of bugs hiding in there. And a peacock at Pleasant Run Nursery who doesn't seem to mind the cold at all. You could take a hike. Here on the left is Joe Stala Park in Branchburg, New Jersey. And on the right is Tripod Rock in Boonton, New Jersey. It has some really unique and large boulders, a really interesting landscape. You could go scouting for big trees. Here on the left is an American holly in my own yard, and on the right is a sassafras tree. This is probably my favorite tree in the whole world. I've never seen a sassafras this big, and I sit at the base of this tree all the time and hug it almost every day. Here is an American sycamore on the left, just walking around our neighborhood. And here on the right is a big white oak in the middle of a field. On the left is a pin oak, and on the right is a huge pine tree of sorts down in North Carolina. And that's my husband there, and you could just see the size of the trunk and how big that tree could possibly be. And when you find a big tree, be sure to thank it. Trees are very grounding, and you could find great peace either hugging or sitting at the base of a big tree. You can follow a mossy trail. You could follow animal tracks. You could visit a greenhouse. This is Morris County Farms in Denville, New Jersey. Greenhouses are much warmer than the air outside, so being able to visit a greenhouse is probably the most winter healing experience there is for a gardener. You could make something with what nature provides. These are photos of a dead hedge. This is a dead hedge that I'm building around our bird bath garden. There is a tree stump here that you could see with a little rusted coffee pot on top of it. Here's our bird bath. These are some winter Amsonias, and these are just fallen branches that I'm using to create a border around the garden. What is a dead hedge? A dead he oh, oh. A dead hedge is a wall or barrier um, creating a perimeter around a garden space. You can use fallen branches or pruned saplings. Dead hedges can be used to create new borders or define a garden's edge. Dead hedges become a habitat for birds, small critters, and insects. The lower branches decompose over time, feeding back more insects and adding even more organic material back into the soil. Dead hedges are a great way to utilize any yard debris that you may have. You can create a snow angel, and if you can't make a snow angel, you could at least try. You could take a polar plunge, or you can go to the beach. You could play hide and seek. And if it's just too cold out, you could stay inside, or you can enjoy winter through a window. Apricity is a word that is not commonly used in the English language anymore, but what it is the warmth that we feel in the sun in the wintertime. So if you take a look at this photo here of our yard, you should be able to feel the warmth of the sun, and that's the apricity. The truth of the matter is that even if it's nice and warm inside, you'll still be thinking about your plants anyway. Like, why is my rhododendron so cold? Thermonesty is a plant's movement and response to temperature change, such as the curling of the leaves or the opening and closing of the flowers. Why do my beech and oak leaves still keep their leaves in the wintertime? This is marcescence. This is the withering and persistence of plant parts that normally shed, most commonly the leaves. Or why do bald cypress have knees anyway? Scientists and botanists have looked into this. They don't know the answer, so this might just be something that continues to perplex us. True gardeners will find a way. The following slides are ways to garden even in the winter season. And here's this lady digging holes in her snow, and I don't know if that's the best way. You can create a winter container. These containers are created by Brittany O'Donnell Garden Design, but they have tons of native species in them. You could see there's winterberry with this red fruit. There's yellow twig dogwood. There's birch. The other plants, these are just some spruces and maybe cripsii cypress. Here on the right, you could see tons of eastern red cedar. There's white pine branches, and then there's even southern magnolia. So there's right here is a great winter garden in a container. You could try winter seed sowing. Um, Winter seed sowing is a way of growing plants for less money. You collect the seeds, you place them in a half of a milk jug with a little bit of soil, a little bit of water, and you tape it back up. Essentially, this mimics a greenhouse. Come springtime, you'll have tons of seedlings and you won't even have to shop at the garden center. Winter garden maintenance. Less is more. Leave the leaves. Leave as much debris as you can, just as nature would have intended. Fallen leaves provide habitat and food for insects, birds, and reptiles. They work to prevent erosion, and as they decompose, they increase soil health. The dried stems of grasses and flower heads, they provide food for birds and they also provide nesting material for nests. Dried flower stalks leave home for nesting bees and larvae. When is the best time to do spring cleanup, you might be wondering. In an ideal and natural world, the best time would be never. The second best time would be mid to late May after insects have started to awaken. You're going to want to cut your perennials back about 15 to 18 inches, allowing for future habitat for nesting bees and insects. The new growth in the new year will quickly cover up these stems. Some people may not like the look of these stems hanging around. So the truth of the matter is, it is your yard, and the key to your garden's success is your happiness with it. So, really, any step that we could take towards recreating nature is going to be best. But if it's making you unhappy and it's not making your garden as beautiful as you want and need it to be, then go ahead and cut it back because if you're planting native, then that's already a great step and it's greatly appreciated. Winter pruning. Winter is the best time of pruning because your trees and plants are dormant right now. There's no leaves, so seeing the structure of the trees and bushes is easier. And during the growing season, sap is flowing and pruning your trees and shrubs at that time just opens them up to infection. So pruning this time of the year, despite how cold it is really the best time for your plants. Here is a picture to demonstrate the best places to prune on a large tree. The first one would be any suckering growth, and that's here at the base of the tree. You're going to want to prune those because they're just stealing energy from the main tree. You're also going to want to prune broken and falling branches. They're not alive, they're hanging there, so you could just get rid of those. These are water sprouts here. Water sprouts are known to occur only after a major pruning, so they don't naturally occur, but if you've just done a pruning job, you'll see growth like this. So you're going to want to clear these out as to allow better airflow for your tree. Any crossing branches up here towards the top of the canopy, crossing branches, rubbing branches, they're going to rub together, creating injuries to your bark. So the sooner you could get rid of them, the cleaner and healthy your tree is going to be. And of course, any branch that you would like to remove to improve the shape of the tree, you could go ahead and remove that as well. You're going to want to remove split leaders, but only do that in a young tree. And that's just to maintain the shape of a tree and its health. Here is some pruning for a smaller shrub. You're going to want to prune any branches that are too close together at the bottom, like this one here. Removing this branch is going to help create airflow for the shrub. Pruning this branch here, this is going to improve the shape of your shrub. Pruning above a promising side branch. So you're pruning this and allowing this one to grow. And this is going to allow for better airflow. Pruning above a bud here is going to allow for more branching. So if you cut here, you're going to see a split branch and just allow for better shape over time. Here's a close-up of a stem and where you're going to want to prune. Don't drive yourself too batty over this because it's just not necessary to drive yourself that crazy. If you prune too low, you're probably going to lose this bud. If you prune too high above a leaf bud, this part is going to die out and turn black and creating what's called a dog tag. It's not going to hurt your plant any. I'm not too sure on what the science is for these different angles. Probably just that this is too close to the bud on this side. Again, don't drive yourself batty. You're not gonna make or break your shrub's life depending on this photo. But it's kind of a good reference. Um, Thoughts on winter. Winter is one of the harshest times of the year. Changing our perspective on winter and embracing the season will help see us through. Find little patches of green to celebrate and fall in love with the 50 shades of brown. Say good morning to the sun every day and thank it for a new beginning. Seasons are cyclical. Winter is about peace and quiet. Breathe in the stillness. Winter is restorative. Enjoy the slowness and take a break. Winter is for reflection. Take the time to look back and look ahead. Winter is resilient. Despite the wind and despite the cold, nature persists. And winter is hope. We can always look forward knowing that spring is on the horizon. Winter is for planning. What will you be adding to your garden this spring? What birds do you want to attract? What butterflies are missing from your yard? You could email the garden center. Our email is mybackyard@nectars@yahoo.com for a current copy of our availability. We could help you plan out your gardens. You could shop ahead of time. We'll pull your plants for you. Or you could just look at the list and daydream. That's probably one of my favorite things to do is to look through plant catalogs this time of the year. Special thanks. Thank you to the Washington Crossing Parks Association for their work in conservation and dedication to education. Thank you for the many friends who helped supply photos for this talk. Matt Cifelli, Eric Fleming, Helen Grunman, Marian Labos, Brittany O'Donnell, Allison Parle-Piano, Andrew Plunkett, and Heidi Taylor, who are all very good friends and customers of the Garden Center. And lastly, thank you to all of our customers. Every plant purchase serves as a ripple effect into the future. This is a difference that we are all making together. And I end with a quote from an old friend. Like the bed bugs always say, I will meet you in the spring if I can make it through the mattress. May the early spring awaken your soul and remind you to celebrate the season with the hope and joy it brings. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Rosalind, thank you. That
Well,
looks
thank you,
amazing.
Kim, for all of your help.
You're making me feel better about winter. My goodness.
That's what I wanted to do. I didn't Winter is hard enough to embrace as it is, so being able to look at all the pictures and see different sides of nature really brings to a different light on the season.
That was so heartwarming. And I'm glad I'm not the only one who doesn't want to get out of my bed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's literally I've come to call it winter hibernation because I feel like it's just what my body is aching to do. I also remind everybody to take their vitamin D because if we're not getting as much sun as we normally should, then vitamin D is gonna help out a lot.
Yes, definitely. Rosalind, you mentioned a few plants that would attract birds. I have a crazy fascination with birds this winter because my in-laws have several bird feeders. They're in Pennsylvania, in central Pennsylvania, and I've been observing a lot of woodpeckers and a lot of tufted titmouses, and I've just been really enjoying the birds this winter. And I'm just curious. I live in an apartment, so what are your suggestions on attracting birds when you have like a small space?
You could probably get a bird feeder, and even just a heated bird bath you might be even able to pull off because your electric outlet might be close. Probably providing a water source is of the most important things we could do this time of the year. And bird feeders because a lot of the plants out there are covered with snow. So any superficial thing that you could provide, especially in a small place like that, is really ideal. Um, because I don't know that you'd be able to replicate a garden outside on your balcony, maybe.
Hmm. That's a great recommendation. Thank you, Rosalind. I never thought of
Mhm.
a bird feeder before. Oh, and Lynn has a suggestion for me. She says she got an electric bird bath. I have to look into that.
Sorry.
Ooh, a heated bird bath.
Wild Birds Unlimited is a chain store, but they're focused heavily on birds. So they have lots of great bird feeders and information there. Wild Birds Unlimited.
Okay, I'll check it out. Speaking of the Washington Crossing Park Association, um, Michael, Rosalind, are there any favorite places you have in the park during the winter that you'd like to
Oh,
share?
that's a good question. We have well, we're currently working on restoring the arboretum in the park. I think that's probably one of my favorite places in the winter because we have a lot of huge white pines in there. And we also have a forest of American hollies nearby. Like it's the whole understory is American holly. So I imagine those berries are pretty beautiful to see right now. So that's all. That's close to where our new visitor center is being built, in that part of the park.
Okay, that does sound beautiful. What is the progress in the park right now? Do we have
Um,
a timeline?
yeah, I don't know I don't know the exact date, but it should be uh I think it's should be wrapping up in the late spring or summer, I want to say. Um,
Okay.
the Arboretum is a longer term. The Arboretum I'm more involved with. That's a longer term, but we'll be beginning this year with that as well.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, and the Arboretum is all native plants. So we're going to be planting lots of these species that Rosalind pointed out. So maybe this time next year or in 2 years we'll get to see some of these beautiful winter interest plants in the Arboretum in the park, which will be
Oh,
awesome.
that'll be awesome. Rosalind, I have a number of people in the chat window just thanking you for this lovely presentation. I don't see any questions yet, but I've heard from several of my volunteers who visited you, Rosalind, at my backyard at Nectars, that you are very informative and are wonderful at answering questions. So, since we had over 45 people in here tonight, I'm going to invite all of you to visit Rosalind at some point. I'm sure you'll have some questions for her. And again, Rosalind, you're in Titusville, right? In my backyard at Nectars.
Yeah, we're in Titusville. We're right on the canal. I suggest if anybody's going to come down and they want to plant something new, then they at least have an idea of how much sun they have, what their soil is like, how quickly it drains, because things like that are really going to help me suggest the right plants if they don't know where to begin. Knowing how bad your deer pressure is also helpful. We are closed right now. We'll be at the Edison Home and Garden Show at the end of this month, and also the 1st of March, trying to reach a retail market that we might not typically be tapped into and hopefully introduce some new people to native plants. But we'll be open that following week. So the first week of March, we'll be back open, and then we'll start bringing in new plants, probably early April, maybe late March, depending on how the weather goes.
Okay, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much again, Rosalind, for your lovely presentation. It just brought so much warmth to my home and thinking about the lovely things we can do in the winter. And thank you, Michael, for bringing this presentation to the Pennington Public Library. We love our collaborations with the Washington Crossing Park Association. And for all of you, now that you have some ideas about how to spend time in the winter, feel free to stop by the library too to pick up a book so you can enjoy your winter scenery while reading a good book. All right. So have a wonderful night, everyone. Thank you again, Rosalind and Michael.
Thank you so much. I also just want to note that we are closed on Monday and Tuesday. Somebody in the chat said that they visited and I was closed. We are closed on Mondays and Tuesdays because that's my weekend. So
All right. Have a great evening, everyone, and stay warm.
thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
Bye,
much.
you.
everyone.
Good night.